In the 1990s, the Saturday morning block for kids on ABC was simply called ABC Saturday Mornings. It featured shows from a mix of different production companies such as Warner Brothers, Nelvana, Deke Entertainment, and Disney, among others. Some of the shows were Bugs Bunny, Winnie the Pooh, and Schoolhouse Rock, just to name a few. The block was highly successful in the 90s, competing against the Fox Kids block mainly. In 1995, the Walt Disney Company bought ABC for $19 billion. The merger was completed the following year in '96, and this led to them making the Saturday morning block Disney shows. Even though the ABC Saturday morning block was successful, this could make it even better potentially. After the merger, several Disney shows were added to the block, such as Doug, which had just come over from Nickelodeon. They also added the Mighty Ducks animated series, Jungle Cubs, Gargoyles, and Nightmare Ned. So there were now a lot more Disney shows on the block, but not entirely, and the block had not been rebranded. Bugs Bunny and Tweety, as well as the show Bone Chillers and ABC Weekend Special, were the only shows not produced by Disney left. The overall block had been around for years, and some felt that it was a little tired and needed an overhaul. So around the spring of 1997, it was announced that the block would receive a rebrand. In the late summer, it was advertised heavily on ABC, and the block officially launched on September 13, 1997. It was called Disney One Saturday Morning. So how would this block be different? Well, for one Saturday morning, it would be 5 hours long, starting at 8 a.m. and going until 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It had a lot more than just shows, as it was an immersive experience with a theme song, hosts, and short programming in addition to the shows. The theme song would say how there's 5 hours of summer once a week with one Saturday morning, and it would enter a virtual 3D world which would have human hosts. The original host to the block was named Charlie, and she was played by Jessica Prunell, who had previously appeared on The Babysitters Club. She was in the 3D building that was sort of like a train station with a roller coaster in it. There would be other characters around as well, and Charlie would talk to the viewers and introduce shows while she hung out with everyone in the 3D world. This added another level to the experience that I think made it a lot more enjoyable for the viewer. Instead of just shows and commercials, there was a lot more to it. But in addition to the one Saturday morning virtual world, there were a number of recurring skits and shorts. These would be on in the 2-hour time slot between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Because of this, there would only be 3 full half-hour shows in that 2-hour time span instead of 4. These shorts, known as interstitials, were both comedy and educational. So actually the block would start with an hour of programming at 8 a.m. and then at 9 they would have the theme song where you would hear from the hosts. This was called the 2-hour flagship period of the block, and that's where all the short programs and stuff like that would be. We will talk about the short programs in a bit, but first let's talk about the actual shows on the block. The original lineup was The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Science Court, 101 Dalmatians the series, Disney's Doug, Recess, Pepper Ann, Jungle Cubs, and The Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show. The first show on the block at 8 a.m. was The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. It was an animated series produced by Disney. This was a series that had been on ABC Saturday mornings for a long time. It originally aired in early 1988 on the Disney Channel. Later, on November 12, 1988, it aired on Saturday mornings and had new episodes until 1991. Since then, it had been running in reruns. The show was based off the popular book series Winnie the Pooh. It was about the daily lives of Pooh, Christopher Robin, and the rest of the Pooh characters: Piglet, Tigger, Eeyore, Kanga, Roo, Rabbit, Owl, and Gopher. The show was aimed at children around the ages of 3 to 10, and the characters would have all kinds of adventures. Many times, simple things turned into a big deal. Each character had a unique personality as well, and the show was a big hit, which is why it stuck around for so long. The next show was Science Court. It was an educational animated series, which was later renamed to Squigglevision in 1998. It first aired on the debut of Disney One Saturday Morning in September of 1997. This was actually not produced by Disney, but instead by Burns & Burns, and the brand new show was added to the block to fulfill the educational requirements. The show was a comedy version of a mixture of courtroom drama and science experiments. In the episodes, a lawsuit would take place between characters based on a scientific point. The characters would then go to science court. Here, the lawyers would argue the case, recall witnesses, and experts. Through this, the viewers would learn many different science concepts and misconceptions as well. There would be lots of humor and some musical numbers as well. The recurring characters were mainly the lawyers in the courtroom and judge. Doug Savage was one of these characters who played an arrogant and often clueless lawyer who would always lose the case. Allison Krempel was the smart lawyer who would go against him and always win. The characters suing each other would typically change each episode. It was an overall very creative and also funny way to teach science to kids. Next came 101 Dalmatians, the series. This was an animated show that first came out in September of 1997, but was in syndication, meaning the show could air on various channels. It was produced by Disney and was based on the original 1961 animated Disney film of the same name. Then there was a live-action remake of the movie that had come out the previous year in 1996, so the franchise was popular at the time. The basic original story of 101 Dalmatians was that a large group of dogs are adopted and a villain named Cruella kidnaps them to make fur coats, but the dogs are able to escape her and put a stop to her plans. The new series focused on 3 of the puppies, Lucky, Rolly, and Cadpig. A chicken named Spot is also one of the main characters. The events of the show take place after the movie, and the puppies defend their home from Cruella, who is now their neighbor. She's constantly plotting to steal their land and scheme against the dogs. The dogs would go on all kinds of adventures as well. The show ended up having 2 seasons and 65 total episodes. The next show was Disney's Doug. This is an interesting show because originally Doug ran on rival channel Nickelodeon. It first aired for 4 seasons from 1991 to 1994 on Nick. After Nickelodeon failed to renew the show for a 5th season in 1995, Disney decided to purchase it. They would make new episodes for airing on their Saturday morning block. The 5th season had actually come out the previous year in '96 during their old Saturday morning block on ABC. So the show remained there. It's about a 12-year-old boy named Doug Funny. He's shy but very creative, and the show follows his daily life at school with his friends and at home with his family. He narrates most of the episodes and lives with his parents and sister. He has a crush on a girl named Patty Mayo at his school, and he has a highly intelligent dog named Porkchop. Doug also has a blue-skinned friend named Skeeter, and there's a bully named Roger Klotz who often picks on Doug. Now, when Disney got the show, many changes were made to it. The characters were slightly older, and there were some changes in their appearances. There was also new voice actors and a different theme song. Some of the changes were done on purpose, and others, such as the theme song, were due to copyright issues. Overall, many people felt the show changed too much, but it was still overall a solid program and a big part of the block. After Doug was Recess. This was a very popular animated series produced by Disney and created for the one Saturday morning block. The show portrayed the lives of 6 kids who were all in the 4th grade. TJ Detweiler was sort of the main guy and is a bit of a troublemaker, but overall a good kid and the leader of the group. Then there's jock Vince LaSalle, tomboy Ashley Spinelli, Mikey Blumberg, who's a large boy but actually a great poet, Gretchen Grundler, who's a nerdy child prodigy, and the awkward new kid Gus Griswold. There are other characters as well, such as the kid's teacher and Randall, who's a well-known snitch. The show follows the kids' adventures in school, mainly during recess time. Many of the characters would have their sort of signature behaviors, which would make things entertaining. The kids would learn all kinds of valuable life lessons, and they had their own sort of form of society with rules both written and unwritten about how to act during recess and around town. The show was overall a funny comedy with entertaining storylines. It ended up being a big hit, so much so that there were several films made of it. It also ran for 4 seasons and had 65 total episodes. This ended up being the best and most successful show that came from the block. It would go on to air reruns on the Disney Channel as well. The next show was Pepper Ann, which was also created for the one Saturday morning block. It was an animated comedy series about a 12-year-old girl named Jennifer Pearson, nicknamed Pepper Ann. She is quirky, energetic, and slightly awkward, and she lives with her mother and her younger sister Moose. Her best friends in the show are Nikki and Milo. Nikki is soft-spoken and very smart, and Milo is a very laid-back kid and also very artistic. The show follows Pepper Ann's daily life at home and school as she hangs out with her friends and learns life lessons. She often overthinks things and talks to herself in the mirror. The show had an overall pretty energetic feel to it, but it was a very good hit and had 4 seasons and 65 episodes. The show would also go on to air reruns on Disney Channel as well. Jungle Cubs was the next show. This was an animated series produced by Disney, which had first come out the previous year in 1996 and aired on the Saturday morning block then. The show served as a prequel to the 1967 film The Jungle Book. It followed the animal characters as children, as they are a close-knit group growing up together in the jungle. The animals go on adventures and all get along pretty well in the show. The main characters are Baloo, a fun-loving bear, Bagheera, a sensible but also neat and uptight panther, Shere Khan, an arrogant tiger with a temper, Prince Louie, an orangutan with a lot of energy, Kaa, a young python with erratic powers, and Heath, a clumsy elephant who tries to keep the group in order. There were several other characters as well that would regularly appear on the show. Overall, the series did pretty well. It was in the 2nd season when the one Saturday morning block started. However, the show would end up having just 2 seasons and 21 episodes. The final original show on the block was Bugs Bunny and Tweety, which would air for 1 hour. This was interesting because it was not a Disney show and was produced by Warner Brothers, but due to a pre-existing contract that had existed before Disney bought ABC, the show remained. It aired at different times, sometimes being the final show on the block, and the Disney logo was not shown at all when it aired. This show had first been on TV in 1986, and the Bugs Bunny cartoons date back long before that. The series was a collection of classic cartoons and had characters like Bugs Bunny, Tweety Bird, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, Sylvester the Cat, and more. In many of the episodes, hunters like Elmer Fudd would try to hunt the animals, and the animals would run away. There would usually be several shorts per episode, and the show was very popular. However, it certainly did not fit in with the Disney One Saturday morning block at all. So that was the original lineup for the block. Now let's get into some of the interstitial programs. Mrs. Munger's Class was one of the most well-known shorts, which would be 90 seconds long. It was a parody of a middle school classroom where the teacher, Mrs. Munger, attempts to teach the class. Everyone from Mrs. Munger to all the students are quite the characters and have lots of different kinds of personalities. Mrs. Munger is always telling the students to simmer down as they make fun of each other and goof off. The interesting thing was that the show used an actual school yearbook from 1975 for the characters. The faces were altered slightly and everything was done on the page. The students' pictures would appear to be moving as they talked. It was a very unique animation style. However, even though the pictures were altered, the show ended up getting sued by the actual teacher and students they used pictures of. This led to the show being cancelled in December of 1998 after 2 seasons and 41 episodes. The Monkey Boys were a live-action slapstick comedy duo of 2 characters named Buddy and Hodgepodge. They would attempt to perform different manual labor jobs in the One Saturday Morning building and would often fail miserably. The characters were mostly mute, and it was overall a classic slapstick comedy short and would be between 60 and 90 seconds long. Manny the Uncanny was a 1 to 2 minute short about an eccentric and goofy roving reporter. He was played by Paul Rugg, and it was actually an educational show where he would learn how things worked, but he would just be really goofy the whole time. He would appear out in the real world and then also in the 3D world as well. Tube Dwellers was another short which was animated. It was about 2 men, both named Bob, that were part of a maintenance crew. They were said to live and work inside the viewer's television, and they would deal with technical difficulties and try to fix them. The animation was unique, and it was overall a pretty goofy and funny short as well. Great Minds Think for Themselves was a series of educational shorts. They featured Robin Williams as the voice of Genie from Aladdin as the host. He would talk about different great minds from history and teach about them. It was interesting because it had a unique animation style. There was Genie, who was 2D animated, but then they would also have real photos as well as real footage and different types of animation. How Things Work was another educational series of shorts. It was a parody of 1950s educational shorts, and they also used the style of old comic strips. This was another unique animation style, as most of them were. The shorts would teach about all kinds of different things related to engineering in a sort of funny way. Find Out Why was an educational series of shorts which featured Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King. They would learn about all kinds of different things and teach the viewers. The characters would be in all kinds of different places to teach them and would have funny back and forth banter the whole time. Flindiggery-Doo was a series of shorts about a funny, over-the-top English explorer named Alistair Flindiggery. He was also played by Paul Rugg, and he would have a companion named Vanessa, who he also voiced. The shorts were educational as well as comical, and he would see an animal out in the wild and give a brief education about it. After trying to get closer to the animal, it would typically run away. Then there was Schoolhouse Rock, which were 3-minute-long musical educational shorts that were animated as well. These would generally air during the Bugs Bunny and Tweety hour of the block. Disney did not produce Schoolhouse Rock, but now owned it after purchasing ABC. In addition to the shorts, unlike Disney Channel, the block would have commercials as well for all kinds of different brands, mainly targeted at kids. So with all these shows and short series running between the shows as well as the hosts, it made the block really fun. In my opinion, it's more enjoyable to have all these things in addition to the programs, such as hosts and other characters. It makes it feel like you're watching the show with a group of people, and it's a whole experience. And when the block launched, it was a big hit. It outperformed its rivals in the Fox Kids block and at Kids WB. That first season, it was the most watched Saturday morning block. Recess and Pepper Ann were a big part of this, and the shows had a lot of success like we mentioned before. The schedule remained the same until the second season in the fall of 1998. There, Charlie left and a new host was added. Her name was Mimi, and she was played by Valerie Ray Miller. They also added a sidekick, which was an elephant named Jelly Roll, and with him came a new short called How Much Stuff Can an Elephant Crush? It was a segment where Jelly Roll, the sidekick elephant, would squash various objects. In Season 2, a new show was added to the block called Disney's Hercules. Jungle Cubs was removed. Hercules was an animated series that was based on a movie that had come out the previous year, also called Hercules. It seemed to be a popular thing to make animated shows based on successful movies in the 90s. The show was released at the end of August of 1998 in syndication, so it could air on multiple networks. In the show, it takes place prior to the events of the movie. Hercules is a teenager and is training as a hero. The show follows his daily life with his friends and family in that time. His best friends are Icarus and Cassandra. The show ended up having 2 seasons and 65 episodes and did pretty well. Doug aired after this, kicking off the flagship part of the block. Then came Recess and Pepper Ann. Bugs Bunny and Tweety was still on, as well as the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and then Science Court, which actually changed its name to Squiggle Vision that year. However, Hercules the animated series did not last long on the block. It only had 13 episodes that were meant for ABC as part of a syndication strategy. The other 52 would run in syndication on other channels, with the 13 being for ABC, so that the episodes wouldn't take over 2 years to air them all. It was removed from the block in April and was replaced with Mickey Mouse Works. This was a brand new show that was made for the block. It was an animated series continuing the adventures of Mickey Mouse. The 30-minute show would feature several different shorts revolving around Mickey Mouse and friends. Some of these shorts would be Mickey to the Rescue, Maestro Mini, Donald's Dynamite, and Goofy's Extreme Sports, as well as others. It was designed to have the same classic feel of older cartoons from the 1930s to 50s. The show had 2 seasons and 25 episodes, and generally aired as the last show on the block. However, it would move around at times. The block was still highly successful, but did cool off slightly in its second season. In the fall of 1999, for the 3rd season, the block made a few other small changes. 101 Dalmatians the series was taken off the block and replaced with Sabrina the animated series. This was a new show, which was an animated series based on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It was produced by Deke, which Disney now owned. In the show, Sabrina is 12 years old and in middle school. She lives with her aunts and her loudmouth cat. In the show, she navigates her middle school life with her friends and family. It ended up having 65 episodes. Miss Munger's class was also changed to Centerville. This was following the lawsuit we talked about earlier, where they were using real yearbook photos as the characters. So Centerville was a continuation and had the same basic animation style, but instead of a class, it was various people in different situations. Also in the fall of 1999, Disney launched another block called Disney 1-2. It was a 2-hour block that aired on Sundays and weekdays on the channel UPN. It featured many of the shows from the Disney 1 Saturday morning block. But back to Saturdays. In early 2000, Disney 1 Saturday morning was losing viewers to Fox Kids and the Kids WB as well. They decided to pull back on their shorts, as well as time with the hosts. This allowed them to add another show, so that 4 shows could air during the 2-hour flagship time on the block instead of just 3. It also cut their costs, because now there was less production for the hosted segments. So in late February of 2000, they added the show The Weekenders. This was a brand new show that was made for the block. It was an animated series about a group of friends who are in 7th grade. The main character is a boy named Tino, who is also the narrator. He's witty, sarcastic, and also a little bit high-strung and neurotic, but he's the leader of the group. Then there's Lore, a tomboy who loves sports. Carver, who is a loyal friend, is also trendy and loves shoes. And then there's Tish, who's very smart, but also a little bit of a perfectionist. An interesting thing is that every episode of the show takes place over a weekend. They usually start on Friday and end on Sunday. The kids hang out at each other's houses, as well as places like the mall or a pizzeria. The series had 4 seasons and 39 episodes and did very well. By the fall of 2000, viewership was still declining, so Disney decided to remove all the hosted content as well as the shorts and interstitials. It was now basically just shows and commercials. This was a change that would only make things worse. Also in the fall of 2000, the Bugs Bunny contract finally expired and was obviously taken off. They added the show Teacher's Pet, which was a brand new show that was made for the block. It was an animated series, first airing on September 9th, 2000. The show was about a 9-year-old boy named Leonard, whose mother is a teacher. His pet dog Spot wants to become a human boy, so he decides to disguise as one and go to school. Leonard and him go to school together, and the dog ends up becoming very popular. It was overall a goofy and creative show that did pretty well. It had 2 seasons and 39 episodes. Another show that was added a few weeks later in October of 2000 was Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. This was once more a brand new show that actually debuted on the Disney 1-2 block several weeks before One Saturday Morning. It was an animated sci-fi series that focused on the Buzz Lightyear character from Toy Story. In the series, Buzz Lightyear is a famous space ranger, and he and his crew investigate criminal activity across the galaxy. Buzz was voiced by Patrick Warburton for the series instead of Tim Allen. It ran for one season but had 62 episodes. So in the fall of 2000, the schedule was generally something like this: Sabrina the Animated Series, The Weekenders, Recess, which was on twice, then Teacher's Pet, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, Disney's Doug, Pepper Ann, Winnie the Pooh, and Mickey Mouse Works. Sometimes the time slots for the shows were changed around, and it also depended on what time zone you were in. For example, Pepper Ann would frequently lead off the block, and other shows were in different spots. But those were the programs at the time. In early 2001, the show Mickey Mouse Works ended, and a spin-off series of the show started called House of Mouse. This was a brand new animated series where Mickey Mouse and his friends run a dinner theater. They showcase a variety of cartoon shorts, and many characters from Disney cartoons come into the theater as guests. It was a pretty creative idea for a show, and really cool to see all the different characters. Pete is always trying to shut down the club, and Mickey and his friends have to stop him. The series would run for 3 seasons and have 52 episodes. Shortly after this, also in January of 2001, Pepper Ann reached the end of its run, airing all its new episodes. The show was then taken off the block and would air reruns on the Disney Channel as well as Toon Disney. Replacing it was another brand new show, Lloyd in Space. This was a sci-fi comedy animated series about Lloyd, who's a 13-year-old alien boy. He lives in a space station with his mother and sister. There he goes to school and spends time with his friends. His best friend is a human boy named Eddie. The other characters in the show are all kinds of different interesting-looking aliens. Overall, the show follows his daily life as pretty much an average 13-year-old kid, except the whole space thing makes it interesting and unique. The show ran for 4 seasons and had 39 episodes. In the fall of 2001, ratings and viewership were continuing to decline from the block. They made a few changes, such as removing Doug from the block. Although it had been a popular series, the show had not produced new episodes since 1999, so it had just been airing reruns. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command was also removed as it completed its intended run. Sabrina the Animated Series was taken off as well. These 3 shows were replaced with 1 brand new series and 2 hit shows coming over from Disney Channel. The new show was Mary-Kate and Ashley in Action. This was an animated series produced by DiC, featuring twin sisters Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. In the series, they are world-famous teenagers just as they were in real life, but on the show they doubled as spies, unlike in real life. As special agents, they would face villains and go on all kinds of missions. The series had 1 season of 26 episodes, but unfortunately was cancelled after low ratings. The 2 series that came over from Disney Channel were Lizzie McGuire and Even Stevens. These were both highly successful series that had been airing on Disney Channel during their Zoog block. And for one Saturday morning, they called the hour both these shows were on the Zoog Hour. Even Stevens had first aired on Disney Channel in June of 2000. It was a live-action comedy series which was about the Stevens family who live in suburban Sacramento, California. Lewis and his sister Ren Stevens are sort of the main characters of the show. They also have an older brother Donnie who is very athletic, and they live with their parents as well. Lewis is the youngest, and he's mischievous and also a bit lazy. His sister is kind of the opposite, as Ren is smart, well-behaved, and a perfectionist. Their personalities often clash, and the show focuses on their lives at school with their friends as well as at home. It was a big hit on Disney Channel, so they decided to add it to the one Saturday morning block. However, all the episodes on the block would be reruns. Lizzie McGuire was another live-action comedy show. It first aired in January of 2001 on Disney Channel, and is about a 13-year-old girl named Lizzie McGuire. She has a typical annoying younger brother named Matt, and lives with him and her parents. Her best friends are Miranda and Gordo. Miranda is confident and enjoys music and singing. Gordo has been friends with Lizzie since they were very young and enjoys filmmaking. In the series, Lizzie deals with the typical ups and downs of being a teenager. An interesting part of the series is that there would be an animated version of her that would express her thoughts and emotions. This show also aired reruns on the block and not new episodes. These 2 shows were really the only live-action series to ever appear on Disney One Saturday morning. In January of 2002, The Weekenders was removed from the block despite being pretty successful. It was not cancelled, but instead would be moved to Toon Disney that fall and would continue to air new episodes there. It was replaced with the final new show that was made for the block, which was Timo Supremo. Now, you might be asking why replace a popular show with a new one? And it does seem kinda weird, but this was a strategy as the ratings and views had been consistently dropping pretty much since 1998. By adding a brand new show, it was a way to create a bit of a buzz and get some views. But also, Disney had launched their Toon Disney channel in 1998 and were trying to build it. So moving The Weekenders to there certainly helped with the new Toon Disney channel, as The Weekenders was an established and well-liked show. So Teamo Supremo was an animated superhero series. It was about a group of kids superheroes. There was Captain Crandall, Skate Lad, and Rope Girl. The three kids would go to school like regular children, but then when Governor Kevin called them, they would go on superhero duty. The kids used their teamwork, powers, and gadgets to defend their state from bad guys. It's also a comedy and is overall a pretty funny series. Unfortunately, it did little to help the declining viewership of the block. In August of 2002, the Proud Family was added to the block, and this was the final show that was added. It was another show that came over from Disney Channel and had originally debuted in the fall of 2001 on Disney Channel. The Proud Family is an animated sitcom about 14-year-old girl Penny Proud and her family and friends. She goes to school and spends time with her friends. There are many other characters on the show, such as Penny's parents, her twin siblings, and her grandmother. The show was very successful on Disney Channel and ran for 2 seasons and 52 episodes. It ended up having a movie as well. On one Saturday morning, they aired reruns, and this show was added at the tail end of the block. In 2001, Disney had just purchased Fox Family from Fox, which included the Saturday morning block that had been running on Fox. The Fox Family channel became the ABC Family channel, and the Fox Saturday Kids block came to an end. With the ratings of Disney One Saturday Morning declining for years and the recent acquisition of Fox Family, Disney decided to end the One Saturday Morning block and do a rebrand. The final shows were Teamo Supremo, Teacher's Pet, Recess, Lizzie McGuire, The Proud Family, Even Stevens, Lloyd in Space, and The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Also, NBA Inside Stuff aired on the final week, which was a basketball show. The following week, the block changed to ABC Kids, which had a whole new look. However, some shows did remain the same, and it was mostly shows from Disney Channel, but One Saturday Morning was sadly gone. Looking back at the block, it had already been losing viewership for years. This was partly due to competition, but also due to less kids watching Saturday morning TV. Things like the internet, which was becoming more and more popular, were a reason for this. For Disney One Saturday Morning, it will be remembered by many people as a fun part of their childhood, especially for kids who did not have cable. I think it was really great that they made new shows for the block and didn't just use reruns from their cable shows. And in the early days of the block, when they had a host and all kinds of other characters, it was a great experience. You could tell that they had fun making it and put a lot of effort in. It was sad when they took the shorts and hosted part away, and that really made the block decline as it felt like they got lazier. At the end of the day though, there were some great shows that came from the block, many of which can still be seen today. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.